All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, before I get started, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Racha HaKwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and rule well. Peace and blessings unto the hopeful elect, pushing his word throughout the four corners of the earth in truth, righteousness, and sincerity. To you I say shalom. This is the brother Yeshaya coming at you again through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. Back again with another lesson. Um, Not sure what I'm gonna title this one. Just pretty much going into the importance of this truth that we have, this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that was given unto us through the Holy Spirit by the way of of our elders and the apostles and elders, right? Over here at Great Millstone, we have received um, really a great gift from the Most High to, first and foremost, to have the faith, and second of all, to have this understanding, especially coming up on these times that we're coming into. This is going to be the dividing factor between those that make it and those that don't, you know, and those who retain this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding all the way to the end, and don't give in, um, when the trials get harder, when the hour of temptation arises, you know, only those that's going to remain and pretty much are solidified in this truth are the ones that's going to, endure, you know, and, in the scriptures, it goes into the elect, right? Those who ain't gonna bend the knee to the image of Baal, those who ain't, like I said, gonna um, uh, give up their integrity, right? Um, there's another word that I'm thinking of as well. Compromise. They're not gonna compromise themselves, you know, just to live a little longer in this world, right? Because we know, pursuant to Second Peter, the third chapter, it goes into um, how this world is gonna pass away. You know, everything we see before us, is on its way out, right? And the new kingdom is about to arise, and that starts first and foremost within us. We got to attain this truth, and hold on to it, you know. But anyway, just going into this video, like I said, I'm just gonna go touch on the importance, how really this truth can't compare to anything that's out there in the world, right? If you have this truth, consider yourself highly blessed, because um, this is greater than any riches, on this side. All right. No amount of money is going to be able to deliver you out of the times that we're coming into, but this truth is what will deliver us, from the evils that are about to be plaguing the earth, right? So I'm gonna start off with this one, Ecclesiastes 7 and verse 12. It says, "For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it." Right? So I'm gonna read it back. For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense. So with both wisdom and money, you can, uh, um, work up a plan. You can do certain moves to where you can, you know, put yourself in a better situation. You know, shit with money. You can buy stuff. To feed yourself, to clothe yourself, to house yourself, right? With wisdom as well. But it says, but the difference between them two is, as it says right here, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. Right? So when you read this in the NLT, it says wisdom and money can get you almost anything, but only wisdom can save your life. You see? Because money in these times that we're coming into is going to be worth really, really little to not almost about nothing, right? Especially when this economy crashes, right? When your Federal Reserve note ain't gonna be worth a damn. When everybody's gonna might be bartering, trading, but not even that, because it's gonna get even worse than that, to where you're gonna have people, just stealing what you got. It's gonna be like that movie The Road, the Book of Eli. People are gonna. It's just gonna be a very bad environment here in America. It ain't gonna be no, like people have like their best, you know, they hope for the best, but they're not prepared to accept the worst, right? They think that, oh well, you know, if the power goes out, or you know what I'm saying, if something happens like that, that's like catastrophic, you know, that can, you know, shake the the, the fabric of society, that pretty much everything is gonna get itself back together, but not with this one. You know, yeah, you know, Esau is gonna come with his proposed solution of getting everybody micro C hip, but really, um, this place is on his way out. You know, as we understand, pursuant to the prophecies, that Esau is the end of the world, Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth, and that this kingdom, Esau's kingdom, is going to be destroyed by thermonuclear destruction. So there's nothing you can do to really escape. You know, if you're here in America, whenever these times come, there's going to be nothing that's going to allow you to escape this judgment that's being prepared. The only way to escape is to make it on one of them chariots, right? Now people are gonna say, "Oh, well, you know, well, we can just go to Mexico, we can just go to South America, we can just go here, go there." Yeah, you can do that, right? But you got to understand the destruction that's gonna happen in America is gonna leave what you call a nuclear fallout. That's gonna pretty much it's gonna be a global thing, to where it's gonna start killing people, killing crops, killing the plant life, right? So there's gonna be nowhere to go. You know, the only way to escape the judgment that's set to happen in this kingdom, right, or this queendom, is to make it on one of them chariots, right? And this is the wisdom that's being offered unto us, you know, is a chance to uh, escape, right? A chance to be delivered from these said evils, right? Now I want to get this real quick, um, in Ezekiel, the 7th chapter and the 15th verse. It says, "The sword is without, and the pestilence, and the famine within. He that is in the field shall die with the sword, and he that is in the city, famine and pestilence shall devour him." Right. So just, like I said, imagine all these evils that we've been talking about, you know, coming on the planet Earth. When you run this way, you know, you're gonna met with some certain evil. You go that way, you know, you're gonna be faced with a different type of evil. You know, no matter where you go, there's always gonna be something, you know. But it says, verse 16, "But they that escape of them shall escape, and shall be on the mountains like doves of the valleys, all of the morning, every one for his iniquity." Right? 'Cause you're going to have some people that's going to escape to the mountains, you know, going to their bunkers, you know what I'm saying, going to some, pretty much doing some off grid type of survival shit. But, you know, they're going to be through as well. But verse 17, "All hands shall be feeble, and all knees and Salakia, and all knees shall be weak as water. They shall also gird themselves with sackcloth, and horror shall cover them, and shame shall be upon all faces, and baldness upon all their heads." Right? And how is this going to happen, man? Because nobody is going to have answers to what to do and how to prepare themselves for this time. It's going to come unexpected. The scriptures talk about how it's going to come as a thief in the night, right? People have their versions or their ideas of how to prepare for a doomsday scenario, but they don't really understand, you know, really Jake, you know, because like this truth ain't offered to everybody. This is only for the Israelites, right? But like I said, Jake is so concerned with other shit, or just the ways of this world, that, you know, whenever we tell them how to prepare for these evil days, they don't take us seriously, or they want a carnal approach to you know, to escape, you know, whatever it is that we're talking about. But it says, but like I said, you know, pursuant to this, you know, this is how people is gonna be. You know, they're gonna be horrified, right? They ain't gonna know what to do. But anyway, verse 19, it says, "They shall cast their silver in the streets." Right? See, so money is gonna be worthless, right? It says that they shall cast their silver in the streets, and their gold shall be removed. Their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord. They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity. You see? So that's going to be the difference between those who fear the Lord and those who don't. Those who don't fear the Lord, they're going to be in straits. They're going to be in distress, perplexity, right? While the elect, they're going to be taken care of, right? When you go into was it Isaiah 65:13? It says, "Therefore, thus saith the Lord power, behold my servants, right? My servants, those who, really mainly the prophets, but even the believers, right? It says, my servants shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servants shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servants shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed." You see, so the elect, they're going to be eating and drinking, right? They're going to have moments of rejoicing, being happy, right? As a matter of fact, it says in verse 14, I'm going to read it. "Behold, my servant shall sing for joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit." You see, so while the whole world is howling, right, out of desperation and vexation, the elect, man, we're gonna be singing, we're gonna be, merry, we're gonna be eating, we're gonna be drinking. The Most High is gonna provide sustenance for His men, for His people, right? Those who believe, right? And this is all, going to be afforded to them. Why? Because they have received the testimony, right? And the scriptures talk about how the testimony of Yahweh Shai is the spirit of prophecy. Those men who um, attained, who took hold of the scriptures, and stuck by it, right? Like I said, they didn't give up their integrity. See, but this is how valuable this truth is. When you go into Proverbs, the 3rd chapter, and verse 13, it says, "Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold." So your mission on this side should not be to try to be the most richest nigga on the planet. Try to make it. Your goal should be trying to attain this wisdom, you know, and hold on to it to the end, right? See, but that's the problem with a lot of Jakes, that Jakes, they don't want to put in the effort for something that, you know, is considered I guess you could say delayed gratification. Jake is into that instant gratification, which is always a downside of Jake. You know, always puts Jake in these precarious situations where they end up getting in trouble, killed, shot, right? Always some bullshit. But here it is, what the Lord is offering is something that requires time, requires effort, requires work, requires patience, and your reward is going to be, exponential. You're going to have great reward out of serving the Lord. You know, I forget it's a scripture that came to my mind and I lost it, but pretty much. Oh, as a matter of fact, let me get it real quick. It's Matthew 16 or Matthew 6:19. Matthew 6:19. It says, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." So this is a treasure, man. This wisdom, knowledge, and understanding is a treasure, you know. And we're awaiting those heavenly um rewards. You know what I'm saying? The crown, right? The immortal bodies, you know, and everything that comes along with that, in the kingdom of heaven. We can only like imagine what we're gonna have, but really once we're there, it's gonna, uh, our expectation is gonna be, uh, what's that word? Exceeded. You know, the Most High is gonna exceed our expectation of the kingdom, right? But let me see. Let's get this one too. Let's get Romans. 8 and 18, I believe. Yep. So Romans 8 and 18, it says, "For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us." You see, so we're gonna receive for this little suffering and this little work that we're doing, we're gonna receive a great reward, right? I believe that's also in Wisdom of Solomon, greatly. Bear with me. Yeah, Wisdom of Solomon 3 and 5. It says, "And having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded, for the Most High proved them and found them worthy for himself." You see, so we're going to be greatly rewarded for our sacrifice, right? And our time and our effort. You know, the Most High isn't a man, you know, how's it go? Um, Let me get it real quick. Pretty much say he is a rewarder. Okay, right here. Hebrews 11 and 6. "But without faith it is impossible to please him, for he that cometh to the Most High must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him." You see? Let me read this in the NLT. It says, "It is impossible to please the Most High without faith." So faith is a must, right? Straight out the gate. So it says, "Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that the Most High exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him." See, so you gotta be sincere as well. You know that those are that's a characteristic that's required. You know, because if you're doing this with um, alternative, um, or I guess you could say, yeah, with with your own alternative intention, to either make money, make a name for yourself, or whatever, you know, ultimately, as the scripture says, into a malicious soul, wisdom shall not enter. So the Most High can strip you of everything, right? But the point being is um, that the Most High is a rewarder, right? So He rewards those who seek Him, who please Him, right? So if you're following His ways, you're doing what's required of you. The Most High, you know, could take favor on you, and start giving you blessings. Now let's see. Let's go back to that Proverbs. I don't think I finished it. Proverbs 3. Where was that? Verse 15. It says, "She is more precious than rubies," talking about wisdom, "and all the things thou canst desire are not to be compared unto her." You see, there's nothing that can be compared to this wisdom, right? In the book of Amos, the 8th chapter, when it goes into the famine of this word, let me go there real quick. It kind of goes into a little bit on how important and how sought after this truth is going to be. But this is Amos 8 and verse 11. It says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord power, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east." Right? So people are going to be searching. They're going to be looking. Right? This is going to be whenever the famine of the word kicks in. Right? Whenever all hell starts coming down on these people start feeling the squeeze. People trying to turn to, you know, somebody or something that has answers, right? Trying to seek counsel, trying to seek information, trying to, what I'm saying? Because there's going to be a hell out here. So they're going to remember those men that were out there in the highways and byways talking about these things, prophesying of these end times, these end time events, right? But it says, "Behold, the days come, said the Lord power, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east they shall run to and fro and seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it." Right? So a lot of people ain't gonna find this truth when that time comes. Right? When Jacob's trouble is in full effect, and you ain't gonna be able to just, go around the corner and find the prophet. You know what I'm saying? Go on YouTube and find the brothers. No, right? But this is how sought after, is gonna be in those days. The value of prophecy, the value of this information, this counsel is going to skyrocket, you know, as the days go get more and more evil. But it says, verse 13, in that day shall the fair virgins and young men faint for thirst. Right? Thirst of what? Thirst of this truth. Right? People are gonna be thirsty out here to get information of what the hell is going on, right? Like what are they what towns are they into, right? Because you ain't gonna have no CNN, no Fox News, no CBS, none of that is gonna be playing to give you any type of comfort. It's gonna be blackout, lights out, man. And as those lights go out, hey, this truth is gonna be hidden, right? Let's see. There was one more I wanted to get. Um, as a matter of fact, let me see. Let me go back to that Proverbs 3. Yep, verse 3 and verse 16. It says, length of days is in her right hand, and her left hand riches and honor. It says her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. Right. And one thing that comes to mind is that Isaiah 33. I think it's 33. Yep, and verse 6. And the wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times. You see, so this truth is going to give us, is going to make us stable. It's going to give us some some uh, uh uh, some place to pretty much like a footing. You know what I'm saying, to put your foot down. You know, so you have some type of stability, right? Everybody, because everybody's pretty much the rug is going to be pulled out of everybody's feet, right? It's going to leave everybody on the floor scrambling, not knowing what happened or what to do, right? But we hey, that ain't going to happen to us because we're going to have that insight due to this wisdom of what to prepare for, how to prepare, and what to expect, you know. So as long as we stay on our watch and as long as we continue to remain, faithful to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, these days ain't gonna come upon us like a thief in the night, right? Like I said, just adding to that analogy of pretty much getting the rug swept up under your feet, right? Because that's how it's gonna be for most people. They're gonna fall and they're not gonna be able to get up, right? But Isaiah 33 and 6, and wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times. So everybody's gonna be bugging out, everybody's gonna be crashing out, everybody's gonna be, panicking, going here, going there, trying to figure out answers, trying to figure out what to do, trying to survive. You know what I'm saying? So everybody's gonna be unstable. But this truth is gonna keep us level-minded, level-headed, right? We ain't gonna, you ain't gonna see men of the Lord crashing out, saying, acting crazy and panicking and, crying like women. No, that ain't gonna be happening, man. But it says, in strength of salvation, the fear of the Lord is his treasure. So this is our treasure, man. Like we mentioned, rubies, gold, silver. None of that stuff can compare to the or as far as value, can compare to this truth, right? The ROI, right? Return of investment, the really the I guess the price of wisdom, even though it's invaluable right now. It's better than rubies and gold, but in Esau society, it's painted as, it's inferior. It's not um I guess something to seek after, right? But soon enough, the Most High is about to reverse all this shit that Esau has set up on the planet Earth. He's about to turn everything upside down that this man has done, and wisdom is going to be back on top, right? This truth is going to be back on top. Silver and gold, that's just secondary. Yeah, it is a defense, but that's secondary compared, in the importance of things compared to this truth, right? This truth comes first. Not riches, not all that shit. No, this truth comes first. right? Because this is how you're going to be able to deliver your soul. The scriptures talk about how, um, uh, how's it go? Pretty much gain the whole world but lose his soul. Let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, right here. Matthew 16 and verse. As a matter of fact, let me start at. Uh, I'll start at 24. Matthew 16 and 24. And then said Yahushua to his disciples, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Meaning you got to put away all your ambitions. You know, you yourself has to come is secondary compared to this truth, right? What you want, what your pleasures are, all that has to sit on the back burner, right? What the Most High and Yahushua want, that comes first. Verse 25, it says, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man um, for what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? See? So, you know, if you gain the whole world, but then or like it's just an analogy, but you know what I'm saying? Like if you were to, you know, get rich and gain all this money and all this wealth, right? But you denied this wisdom, what's that going to benefit you, right? What are you going to give in exchange for your soul, right? You gained the whole world and now you're about to die. You see, this is why this truth is invaluable, as we read in Ecclesiastes, the third chapter. I mean, the seventh chapter, right? That the difference is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. You see, so again, just reiterating the point, you know, how this truth is more valuable than anything, you know. Um, but yeah, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and close it out. You know, I pray the lesson was edifying. That was pretty much all I had. But I'm gonna go ahead and close it out by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahashim, Racha HaKodash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and rule well. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing his word throughout the four corners of the earth in truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Until the next time, I'm gonna say Shalom, Kwame Sha'Allah.